Hey there, if you are shooting in an epic location and you desire images that look like this, but you oftentimes end up with images like this, I'm gonna break down why, and I'm gonna explain to you how you can walk away next time at your next shoot with epic photos. So recently I did an engagement session in Scotland, Glencoe, Scotland to be exact. It's epic. It is known for being one of the most epic landscapes in the whole country. I've shot there many times, and this shoot was a sunrise shoot. It was beautiful, but the sun and the clouds were changing rapidly. It was moving quickly. Maybe that's how it always looks in Scotland at sunrise. I've never shot at sunrise. We had epic portraits, and then we had some pretty just so average portraits. I'm going to break down why certain images turned out to be epic and why certain images turned out to be just okay. The first one is probably the least impressive image. Okay, so this image, not a lot of sky, not a lot of detail. It looks just pretty average. It's still beautiful. I've actually shot in this location where this was like the only look that I ever got. This is probably, though, the least impressive. Then we move into a shot like this, where you're starting to see a little bit of the detail of the sky. And this is literally just, I don't know, not even half a mile up the road. Where you saw that last image is right behind where these people are standing. We were just standing in the bottom. Okay, so now we're in the same location, just moved up the road slightly. The light looks a little bit different, sky looks a little bit different, and my colors look a little bit different. And then we look at this image, which I think personally is the epic of all epic photos. This is one of my favorite. It's going in my overall portfolio. I've done this for 14 years. I love this image. So let's break down what's going on in the journey towards that epic photo and break down what the light's doing, what the clouds are doing, and how you can understand these things better so that you can capture these epic photos the next time you have the opportunity to. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the intensity of the light that's hitting the front of the couples. It's very tempting to focus on the sky and what's happening with the sky, but the truth is, the way that the sky presents itself in the exposure of an image, you've got to pay attention to the light that's hitting the front of your couple, and that is actually going to determine the epicness of your sky. The reason for this is because I'm always exposing for my client's skin. So I'm making sure that I am exposing for their skin so their skin is not super dark and it's not super overexposed. It's just right. Now, if I'm exposing for my client's skin, then that is going to affect how the background is going to be exposed. And so the ratio between the intensity of light hitting the background and the intensity of light hitting my client is going to affect overall what is being shown in the image as far as the background of the sky showing up versus their skin being properly exposed. So I'm trying to find a balance here. And as the clouds in relationship to the sun, all those things are moving and changing, it's affecting the position of my clients and the intensity of light that's hitting them, which then in turn affects how much of the sky is being properly exposed for. So in this image, this is probably my least favorite image when it comes to the epicness of the background. Why? Because this whole area, in my opinion, is just kind of boring. There's a good explanation for why this is happening. The sun is right here and it's hitting them from behind, but it's not hitting them in a super intense way because of all the clouds. And so that is why I'm exposing more for my client's skin. I have to make it a little bit brighter, and that means everything in the background is going to start to slowly wash away. Not super ideal. The client is being exposed for by secondary light. The light behind the openness to the sky, behind where I'm shooting, is how I'm exposing for my client's face. So basically, secondary light is the largest, softest, less intense light source available. The next image I'm going to show you is going to be lit, and I'm exposing for my client's skin with a totally different type of light. Okay, so this image is different. It's the same scenario, but I'm flipping my clients around. And so now, instead of the sun being behind their heads, covered with clouds, I'm having to brighten and use a lower shutter in order to expose for my client's skin. The background's getting washed out. So now I've spun them around and the sun is actually exposing them, but the sun is being diffused by clouds. That's why it looks soft. That's why it doesn't look intense. There's no lines of light. It's not too much for my style. The intensity of light hitting them is increasing. Really, there's more light hitting my client because I turn them around and now they're facing the direction of the sun, but we still have some thick cloud cover. So now we're gonna look at an image that I think was a little bit of luck, a little bit of perfect scenario, but it combines all these concepts into one photo. Let me just show you. This is probably my favorite photo it is my favorite photo from my entire trip to Scotland. Why? Let me break this down. Because this was a meet in the middle of good light intensity, but also enough sunlight shining through to have epic skies being captured. So the reason why this is so epic is because across the board, this is the most even photo. So like my exposing for my clients is not making the background super dark and heavy because there's a little bit of wispy clouds protecting them from intense sunlight. The reason why the background looks so epic is because there are some variables in the cloud coverage, and yes, there's some light, there's some highlights here where the sun is peeking through a little bit, but it's not fully peeking through. And yes, there are some dark shadows, but if the entire mountain was as dark as what you see right here, this photo would be super heavy in the background. The reason why it's not super heavy is because this entire mountain has sunlight hitting it, but it's not full on sun. It's sun that's coming through wispy clouds. The wispy clouds are what created the epic photo. But the hard part about this is that every few minutes this was changing. I mean, literally in the video, I remember when I was shooting this telling Michael, like, oh, we got to get him over here. And I'm looking at the clouds going across the sun. And I'm like, keep him over here for a few more minutes. And as the clouds move and it starts to get too intense, I switch them to backlit because the light changed, the intensity changed. And I'm trying to protect them from that intensity by then putting the sun behind them. So as a professional, being able to notice the relationship between the intensity of light and what's happening with the cloud and the sun, that's how I determined which angle I should be shooting in. And it just so happened that we did a sunrise shoot and I noticed, you know what, this field is even and it's soft and it's not super intense and the background is not overexposed. Let's get them here quickly before the light changes. And that's how we ended up with this. And I walked away from this part of the shoot thinking, if I got nothing else, this was enough. So it's important to point out that in this epic photo, the light is actually the same setup as in this photo. The only difference is the amount of intensity. So the cloud cover across the sun was heavier and thicker here, so less light was hitting the couple, which means the background is going to be a little bit fainter, not as dramatic because there's less light to expose for hitting the couple, whereas here, the wispy clouds, the clouds are starting to break up a little bit, letting a little bit more light in here and there, and it's changing the intensity level of the light hitting the subject, which means if there's more light hitting the subject, then my exposure is going to create more depth and richness in the background. This was actually the very beginning of the shoot. So I took this epic portrait and then the rest of the time, I spent the rest of the whole session trying to get something this epic and it never really happened again. So, lesson learned. When you see a moment like this, and I tried to do this, and I think I did a good job, I tried to think of as many things as I could in this 5, maybe 3-minute window of time where the light looked like this before it changed. I tried to do as many portraits as I could think of, as many compositions, as many different focal lengths, as many different poses, while still capturing the epicness before I lost it because it didn't come back for the rest of the session. All right, so if you enjoyed this and you want to see me shoot in more real-life scenarios and see how I handle light, how I do posing, how I work with my clients, you can. I have 5 years. Basically, everything I've shot the last 5 years is available for photographers to be able to learn from real life scenarios. KJ All Access is the most affordable way to grow as a professional photographer and to learn how to actually deal with lighting and deal with posing and deal with your clients. You can learn more linked below. I hope you loved this. We will do more in the future if we get great feedback. Leave comments with questions and thoughts for the future. I will see you next time. Like and subscribe so you don't miss another video. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.